welcome to the channel if you're new here. If you're not, you might already know what to expect, kind of, sort of. I'm trying to get into this long form content. It's really hard for me to make videos without having to redo them 50 times. But here I am presenting this info that I think is important to present to my audience in particular, considering I shoot Smith Wesson revolvers not for them, but I just shoot them because I prefer to shoot them. But I've ran into an issue. So I feel like I'm kind of responsible to let my viewers know about these problems that I've been experiencing lately. And, you know, people should just be able to know. I'm not sponsored by them. In my opinion, I'm not good enough to be sponsored by them yet. Sure, I'm really good at shooting down a lane, but that's a whole different story than running a whole USPSA stage. This is what it is. I hate to make this video. I do. I wish Smith & Wesson was perfect. I wish that these problems weren't so frequent, but they are. They're very frequent, and they're a very big problem. Not just some little piddly stuff that can just be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine, you know. This is a big deal, okay? I'm not over-exaggerating. I am simply giving you the facts. I think anybody who watches this video will understand what I mean. When I think about this issue of Smith & Wesson, this is really what I think of right here.
Listen, it's not the end of the world. These kind of things happen. Let's have a look at it. Oh, for God's heaven's sake! Sheila! No! Sheila, honey? Don't... Sheila, honey, you gotta come here. You gotta see this.
What is this? What? No!
So before I get into explaining these issues that I've had, let me give you a rundown of my experience, and you can understand that I'm not just a regular Smith & Wesson fan who has a 44 Magnum. Let me start off with this. This is a Model 58 41 Magnum 6-shot, and let me tell you, this gun is smooth. Oh my goodness, probably the smoothest Smith & Wesson I own currently. Beautiful gun too. Look at it. Just look at it. This was my grandpa's. He had great taste, let me tell you. He also had a high standard shotgun. That's besides the point. In no particular order, here's a 45 ACP 6-shot. Very nice duty gun. This is actually a 1917 Brazilian contract, which means it was made in 1937, and there's a couple small differences between this one and the original from 1917. In my opinion, this one is superior. These guns that I'm showing you right now, I've had no problems with. These are just the ones I've had no problems with. Of course, these are, the two that I've shown you so far, are actually from before the year 1980. I'm not speaking specifically. I didn't do the most research into this. I just get the general idea through experience of looking for information. Around the 1980s, people claimed that Smith & Wesson did a lot of cutting back on cost measures, and you know, in turn, their quality control went down, and you know, everyone noticed, and you hate to see it. Everything else I'm about to show you is much more recent and very much subject to the possibility of having terrible quality control, as I'll prove here with my collection alone. So this is a 625-8. I really love this gun. Another 6-shot 45 ACP. This is one of the higher round counts of revolvers that I have. Nothing too crazy. I'm not rich, so I can't shoot tens of thousands of rounds per month. I can't, you know, like, just go to the range every day and shoot. I just can't afford it. I will say probably 20,000 rounds, guesstimate 20,000. Definitely a lot of dry fire, a ton of dry fire, both reload practice and trigger pulls. And the only thing that happened on this was natural wear, but it worked. It still works. 986, similar deal, definitely less use out of this, but I've had a considerable amount of use on this, and you know, it's what I started training on back in 2022, November 27th, 2022. That's when I started training revolver, and really training hard in general. I mean, it's held up. I have no complaints about it. 7-shot 9mm, and it goes boom when you pull the trigger, so that's good. 929, 8-shot 9mm. I really like this gun. It is a good choice. I really would have liked it if it was like a 6-inch barrel, but overall, very, very nice gun. High round count for me, at least. You know, so it's in the 10 to 20,000 round range, and lots of dry fire trigger pulls, dry fire reloads, and no real sign of any serious wear and tear. It's just a little dirty right now. And then of course a 360 PD. Now this is just a pocket carry that I have. Very convenient, very light. You almost don't even know this is in the pocket. Very nice invention, I must say. It's a pocket carry. So I do believe that would have left us with 6 guns that I've shown you so far, 2 of which were made before the 1980s. which kind of excludes them from this supposed uprise in quality control problems in the Smith & Wesson brand. But now I'm going to show you not one, not two, but three Smith & Wesson revolvers that have had essentially catastrophic problems either right from the start or not long after I had gotten them myself. I'm going to start with this disassembled Performance Center 625. This gun I had purchased from an elderly gentleman who was just downsizing his collection. So when I got it, it was like new, you know, very, very good condition. Point is, I shot it for probably a couple months. I don't know how long exactly. I could go back and just pinpoint every single date, but I'm not going to. That's too much work, all right? A few months, whether it's 1 to 3, around that range, okay? And I dry fired it, I live fired it, and one live fire range day visit, I was going, ready to shoot, got a few rounds off, and then I pull and it skips a chamber. And I felt it too. I was just like, ooh, that didn't feel good. I immediately inspect everything and figure it out real quick that the chamber is skipping. And it really only skips at a quicker trigger pull speed. If you're just going real slow, you know, I mean, it's not going to skip. But for whatever reason, it started skipping. And it was no distinguishable reason that I could come to a conclusion to. Then we have the 627. And this thing I bought brand spanking new right from the shop. And didn't even have it, I don't think, a full week. It might have been a full 7 days. And I didn't even have maybe about 2 hours of use out of this, both dry and live. And it's an 8-shot 357 Magnum. The original reason I bought this is because I was going to use speed loaders to actually speed load instead of just moon clip, drop them in and get going. Because speed loaders are inherently slower to use over moon clips, and I don't have any experience with them, and I want to get good at them. I want to get good at everything. I want to get at least decent at everything. So that's why I bought this. Yeah, basically at the range, and it skipped a chamber. Now, I think on this one, I think I actually thought it short chucked, which would have been my fault. But then I went around again, right? I pulled the trigger 7 more times to get that 8th pull off again on that last one that I knew I had in there. And, well, it skipped again, and I noticed immediately that time. And not only did it skip, but I actually have the round right here, and I'll throw a picture up if this doesn't come through on the camera very well, which I doubt it will. Now, if you can see from the picture, there is a primer strike, like right on the primer and right on the primer pocket border. And, I mean, that's a firing pin strike. So both times it struck out of time, and one time it was very close to claiming my 627 with a out of time discharge. If you don't know, that can be catastrophic for your weapon. Now, as far as I know, that's not like the most dangerous thing for you to be a part of, especially if you're just at the range plinking. You might get cut, you might catch a piece of shrapnel in the finger, or what have you, but it's not going to be too severe as far as I know. As far as this is my knowledge, this is what I've seen on the internet, actual videos of people having out of time shots and blowing their frames off or completely mangling it or whatever. There's only so much tolerance for the chamber to be out of line with the barrel, and once you hit a certain point where that chamber is so lined up with the forcing cone, which the forcing cone is right here, by the way. Why can't I do this? There we go, right here. This is the forcing cone. So when the chamber lines up with this forcing cone, the bullet goes out the chamber through the forcing cone and into the barrel. And, well, when you're not lined up with it, it just smacks right into the forcing cone. And that's a lot of pressure in a very small space. And, yeah, it does a lot of damage to your gun. I've never heard of anyone, like, dying from it. I've never heard anyone come close to dying from it. It's just something that can happen that is not good for you. But I will say what could kill you is if it happens the moment you actually need your gun, which, based off of both of these, and I mentioned this in the emails, but based off of both of these and my experience with them, these very easily could have been in a situation like someone took it, bought it, took it to the range, test fired it just a little bit, understood it, realized they could shoot it accurately, right? And then both of these were fine 1 second and then skipping the next. And that's just the way it happened. And that is no good. I will say, on Smith & Wesson's part, that this is a problem, a very bad problem, but it is a problem that you, at least I personally, don't believe there's any real distinguishable way to tell just by looking at them and say, oh yes, this is a skipping chamber. No, it just doesn't work like that. You actually have to fire it to find out that it does the things that it does. I don't want to get too far into it. That's just what happened. Now you may be wondering about this third revolver, and I'll tell you, it's a different problem than these two. And these two obviously have very big problems. Now this third revolver, this is a shocker. I'll tell you, it's a shocker for me. I actually cannot believe I'm holding it in my hands right now in the way that it arrived. The way that it arrived to me, I cannot believe this gun actually exists. I can't believe it made it out the door.
What's that bubble there?
What do you think? It's a...
Well, how the hell did you get the beans above the Frank? I mean,
I don't know. It wasn't like it was a well thought out plan.
I wonder if Smith & Wesson has some sort of holiday where it's like everyone just gets wasted at work or something, and they happen to make this gun on that day. But truly, this is unacceptable. And I am happy, but not happy to announce, ladies and gentlemen, a 327 WR. So, if you don't know what this gun is, let me explain. I could run it down for you real quick. This gun is technically, it's a replica of the custom gun that Jerry Michalek had used to set his most recent world record, which was a drill that consisted of starting from holster and then drawing, I think at 7 yards, and I think there were 7-inch plates, might have been 8, pretty sure it was 7. 6 of them on a plate rack, draw, shoot 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he did it in 1.82 seconds, if I remember correctly, 1.8 something seconds nonetheless, which is very fast. And he also crushed even the autoloader record for this drill as well. And very impressive for any double-action revolver with as long as a trigger pull as these guns have. This is essentially a replica model that's as close as you can get from Smith & Wesson without actually going out of your way to get this work done by, you know, an actual gunsmith. This is also an 8-shot 9mm revolver. It's overall a very interesting piece. These are limited edition. There's only 1,880 of these. And the MSRP is $3,500. Very expensive. Overall, like the general market value right now is about $3,000. You can get one of these brand new. Well, and I actually haven't mentioned this in the email, so I'm mentioning it here. I actually bought mine used. I did buy it used. I got it for $2,500, which, in my opinion, that's still expensive. More reasonable than $3,000, definitely more reasonable than $3,500, but $2,500 is what I got, or what I paid for this. And the previous owner, he said he shot 115 grain CCI, and then he shot some match grade ammo. And he said he didn't shoot very many. He said about 20 rounds. And I believe him, because I mean the condition of this revolver right now is not accurate to the condition when I first got it. I mean, the finish was perfect. I don't care about the finish. There's little nicks and stuff like that now because of me, but the finish was perfect. Very, very minimal use. It was very obvious. He obviously wasn't lying when he said he only shot like 20 rounds through it. It didn't look like that much had got shot. But he also, I don't think he actually really noticed some of these problems because, of course, the ammunition he used fired, which I'm surprised it did. But also, he might have not just taken a very close look at this gun. This gun is by all means, even if I wasn't a competitive shooter and like this gun got out to some collector or something, this is still unacceptable, and especially for a collector. Now, I only care about functionality, so 2 of these problems aren't that big of a deal, and 1 of these problems is a huge deal. And that's right, there's not 1, there's not 2, there's 3 problems with this one individual special edition firearm.
Oh, there.
Oh, Christ.
What the hell's going on here? Neighbors said they heard a lady scream.
Well, you're looking at him. You gotta take a look at this thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Ain't it a beaut?
What the hell were you thinking? How the hell did you get the zipper all the way to the top?
Moving on to the problems. And I might not even have to show you a picture of this, because I think I could just have the light hit it just right. These are weight reduction ports, is what they're referred to as, at least as far as I know. They are drilled and tapped, so you can, like, they're threaded. But if you're looking at them, you might notice, oh gee, that looks a little off to the right. Definitely not centered. If you notice on this side, where my finger is, this edge, notice the gap between the edge and the ports. And then when I do the same on this side, let me find it. Notice the gap. There is no gap. The ports are actually overlapping that edge. Wow. I can't believe that this alone got out and into circulation. You would think there would be some sort of step along quality control where they look for things like this, but I guess not. Second thing, and this was an easy fix, except it is a problem, okay? It's sloppy and it's bad craftsmanship, and the bad craftsmanship comes in at the forcing cone, which this actually applies to most new Smith & Wesson forcing cones, is that they put like a lethal edge on this thing. You cut your finger on this, you're bleeding out dead in 15 seconds. Your body's cold at that point. Alright, of course I'm exaggerating, but oh my goodness. Like, these are like perfect 90s, which some people might like that. I definitely don't, not for functionality. But not only that, but there was also some lip burr on the actual forcing cone itself, which I have a little snippet of playing with. You can't see it, but I can definitely feel it. One second. I am catching the lip of some burr with my fingernail, and it's just there. So I removed the burrs myself with a file, and I actually normally file all my Smith & Wessons that I use frequently here because it's so sharp almost every single time. If you look at this from a logical standpoint, they made this package to be a race gun, right? And so race guns you would expect to be able to run kind of fast, right? And when you run a gun fast, you also have to reload fast. Well, my reload technique requires my thumb to go right through there, right next to the forcing cone, right? If I go too quick and I cram my thumb there, which I have done this before, even on duller forcing cones, and I have cut my thumb mildly, given, because I dulled it down with a file, but if I didn't dull it down with a file, I definitely would have had a pretty bad cut on my thumb. And same with the Michelek technique, okay? Michelek comes in through here with his two fingers, alright? You're telling me he's not going to cut his middle finger here? That's ridiculous. There's no way, it's just bound to happen if it's sharp there. So that is just two massive, sloppy craftsmanship flaws that I just cannot believe even made it through, let alone if it was only one. Like, if it was only the forcing cone, I would have been like, dang, dude, like, what are you guys doing? If it was only the ports, same thing. Now, I will say, if it was either one of these, possibly even both of them, I wouldn't even be making this video. I wouldn't even be telling you about the 625 or the 627. I would just simply move on and continue as usual. But this is where the real problem starts. And let me give you a little bit of background. When I first brought this home, and the day I got it, I normally shoot guns that I get that day, that second. The very last moment I get through the last of that 4473 in background check, I go straight into the range and I just let it rip. And I did not do that for this because I was very tired the day I picked it up after work, and I wanted to be in my best performance. You know, I wanted to perform at my best, and I was just too tired to do that, so I said, forget it, I'm coming back tomorrow and shooting this thing. That night, I went home and I studied and looked at it for about 30 minutes straight. That's actually when I realized the ports were off, the forcing cone was burred up, and I was looking at the firing pin, and I'll show some pictures. When you pull the trigger, the firing pin peeks through this gap right about here, so you can see it. And when I pulled the trigger and I turned it sideways and I looked, I just immediately noticed that the firing pin was way too short. Like, it was barely peeking out of the frame. So I disassemble it. I try and see if there's any sort of obstructions in the firing pin housing area. I try and see if the spring is messed up. I try and see, I even measured, I took measurements, compared measurements from end frame to end frame to see if there was any sort of inconsistencies with the thicknesses of material at any point. I couldn't find anything. Now, I'm going to do a remeasure one of these days here, but I couldn't find anything out of the ordinary, and I actually don't have an explanation as to why the firing pin that is the correct size for standard Smith & Wesson end frame revolvers, I have no explanation as to why it actually wasn't making it as far as it should have been through the back of the frame and into where the primer should be on your live cartridge. So right away I of course emailed Smith & Wesson about this, and that's for the next video where I go over the emails and discuss things even further in depth and tell you more exactly about what happened. But essentially I ordered a custom length firing pin from a custom shop that I don't care to say by name because I don't actually really like their products, especially for the price, because it's overpriced and not that great quality, in my opinion, from everything that I've gotten from them so far. But even this extended firing pin was still just a hair, just a little bit hair shorter than my stock 929 firing pin. And I noticed that right away, and I thought, all right, well, maybe it'll be just enough, because before it was hardly firing. It was having like a 40% fire rate, which is terrible. And of course I was using Winchester white box ammunition, but even that, I mean, with a properly length firing pin, I'm still running at like 98%, and at worst 90% efficiency with fire. The chances the round will go off, I can't think of another way to put that. I'm just saying, it typically never goes under 90% chance of going off, alright? It's not great ammo to run a revolver. It is roll crimp, so it's nice to reload, but other than that, it's not very reliable. This, in fact, was not the ammo's problem. I can guarantee you, I can assure you. This was a problem because the firing pin just wasn't cutting it. Like I said, the extended firing pin was a hair shorter than my stock 929 firing pin. And not only that, but the company that makes these, they really dome the end of the firing pin, which is totally ridiculous. I don't understand why they wouldn't taper it, because even Smith & Wesson stock firing pins are tapered. There should be a taper on it. Why are you not tapering it? And that literally did like maybe 2% better. I didn't run enough rounds through it to even truly figure out an exact percentage, but it definitely didn't do much better, not noticeably better at least. So I made my firing pin with an old which I it out of the old with a drill and you know what? We're back at that 90% with the Winchester white box, baby. We're in action. So this is about as good as I can get it for now. I might actually reattempt at making a second, like a Mark II firing pin. But yeah, I mean, what a headache, man. This is just what happened. I had to share it with you guys. Let me know in the comments down below, like, what's your guys' Smith & Wesson nightmare stories, if you have any. And also, wow, how does it get this bad? That's what, 7 guns, well after 1980, and 3 of them are bad. 3 of them are terrible. 3 of them, this one should have never even left the shop, like I said. But here we are. Oh yeah, last little bit of detail. Now this one's less important because I figured it out. Here's the rear sight to the 327 WR. Now, there's not much slack in it now because I've realized that if you tighten this here on this side and not this side, because this side adjusts windage, this side literally tightens the part actually into place. But when I got it, it was like walking out and it had a lot of slack. So that was kind of weird. Never seen that before. Not even on some of my most used revolvers that still hasn't walked out on me yet. Just kind of weird little nitpicky problem, but still a problem nonetheless, especially on this gun of all guns. I mean, look at this thing. Just look at it. Like, I bought it mostly for the functionality and mostly for the features of being a lightweight race gun, but you can't tell me you're not going to look at this and say,
yeah, well, in the words of Scotty Wallace, yeah.
That's what I said. I said, you.
There's no way the photos can be that rigged. You!
Holy.
But yeah, that's about all for right now, guys. I am going to go through these emails. These emails are something else. Oh, whoa! The I swear they were like, I felt like what's that one game? That one show where it's like, oh yeah, Impractical Jokers or whatever it is, and you know they have the mic in their ear and the one guy's telling them what to say to like the random person in this random situation they made up that they have to go through, and then he's like, oh yeah, tell them this will be hilarious. It's gonna really make them angry. Like, that's what I felt like emailing Smith & Wesson. Okay. I know I look crazy right now with my two Smith & Wessons like this, talking about Smith & Wesson all intensely. But dude, oh my gosh, Smith & Wesson has a listening problem. But that's for the next video. Ladies and gentlemen, please be wary of Smith & Wesson. I'm going to continue to use their guns. They are, at least for me and what I'm used to, these are the best platform for speed revolver shooting. Unfortunately, they appear to be very irresponsible with quality control, which can really affect some people in a lot of different ways, and it's very unfortunate. Now, this, like, I'm really making this so Smith & Wesson can hear and see what is going on here, because this is bad. This is really bad. 7 guns, 3 of them are bad. Technically 8, because I also had the 500. Some of you may know what happened to the 500. My bad. But what I'm saying is, this was an $1,100 gun. I think I paid like $1,150. And then, of course, you got the well, whatever fees you may or may not have. Over $1,000 for a 5-inch stainless steel frame revolver. And it skips. I don't know where the value is. And then another one. About $1,000, and it skips. It's like, where's the value going? Wouldn't it just be more profitable to charge $1,400 for this, but actually ensure it's not just gonna crap out on you randomly one day? Like, wouldn't that be much more profitable than just sending this out and having someone like me come and tell everybody else, like, hey, this $1,100 revolver is essentially useless because you could have the chance of literally blowing the frame up. Like, I don't know what they expect. I don't know what they expect. When you cut corners, especially in quality control, but also in your technique of ensuring the quality is controlled, there's going to be a lot of big problems. You're going to get a bad rap, and you're going to suffer the consequences. And that's just the way it goes. I'm just saying what reality has told me, and that's the way that it is. I wish I could. I wish I could root for, like, I am rooting for Smith & Wesson. Okay, I wish I could recommend their guns. But I can't recommend them willy-nilly, just like, oh yes, get them, they're great, you'll have the best of times, oh ho ho. Because you probably won't. And according to my collection, you actually have a pretty great chance that you won't. Wish it was different, wish I didn't have these problems, but I do. And yeah, I did in fact fix this problem. Okay, I was going to compare it to the 929, that was the whole reason I bought it. But now, I don't have like the most fantastic shooting footage with this yet, but you know what? I'll throw it in here for just for this video. I throw it in 8R8. Okay, one of my first successful 8R8s with it within the first 3 attempts. Stick around for the part 2, where we see where else Smith & Wesson also went wrong and what they can do to fix it, because I do have some answers to these problems. I do have some solutions, very attainable solutions to these problems that I think they could hop on the moment I drop the video. Really, they could hop on today. It just takes a critical thinking mind to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should do this instead, because this is clearly not working. They're insane. They're insane people. Oh. All right, I gotta stop. I'm rambling. Peace out. Hope you enjoyed. Hope the info was good. Hope the info helped. And have a good day. Boom.